I wish you was a wishing well, that I could tie a bucket to you and sink it.
Hi guys, welcome back to Hi Lazarado. This is the Art After Hours podcast. You're here with your hosts. I'm the gentleman.
And I'm Papa Smoke. And it's been a little while, hasn't it?
It has, but that's because the topic of this episode, so anyone that has not listened before, we review films. Particularly we're looking at the 100 most influential films of all time according to Total Film.
Film magazine, yep.
Yeah, and the reason it's been a little while since we've done the last episode is because this next one was such a momentous task. Because we did The Godfather Part 2.
Well, we did that within
so
the
we had
day.
to talk about Godfather Part 1, and then we've looked at some more of Francis Ford Coppola, the director's work. Yeah.
So we've been like deep in the research on this one, I feel.
I feel like each one we're like researching more and more, where at first it was like just watching the film, that's it. But we kind of want to watch loads of other pieces of work that are connected to it so we can understand it better and talk about it. But I mean, I guess we'll start with the films. I had never watched the Godfather films.
Yeah, well, the first one before you watched Part 1.
Wasn't that
a little while before we even started, like maybe
a few months.
2 months, so it was like it was relatively fresh in your head, and you, like you say, before that time you'd not seen one of them. So what did you feel about the first one before? Like, did you like?
I really liked the first one. I completely understood why it's so influential, and from the moment it started,
beautifully shot though, isn't it? Like some of the scenes, and like for the time of it, I feel the cinematography is very nice. But
absolutely, there's goes without question why it's considered one of the greatest films of all time. I thoroughly enjoyed the first one, and what captivated me with the first one in particular was of course, our performance of Don Corleone, of course.
Oh well, Marlon Brando, man. What? It's I love it. I love that character so much. It just, him playing that role spawned so much like pop culture, really, in the way that there's always a guy taking the piss. Like there's always that head of the family, which is like an older dude that takes care with his words, just sitting there going, "You want to respect me?" Huh? Even like in like stuff like Zootropolis, that little mouse. He's a depiction of Don Corleone.
Yeah.
Recognize him.
Yeah. There's like Zootropolis, there's The Simpsons, Sopranos.
There's literally so many that are just like, it's popular, like pop culture having a guy, and it's all because of that performance, and it's so class. I mean, like you can literally have like the dialogue that he says over like some of the conversations, like the whole respect conversation and that, and it's just like, it's quotable. It's like quotable. It's that good that it's quotable.
I think it's because a lot of the dialogue and what he's trying to say, he's not just a character that tries to intimidate, but everything he has like a sort of philosophy to it.
Yeah.
And there is this air of this person feels very in control and very intelligent. So I love that, and I think it just really made us realise why Marlon Brando is considered as the best actor that's ever lived, and with some other performances we'll talk about later. But he, what I loved about the first one so much was following Michael's character being this kind of golden boy, wasn't really a part of that
it's like
scene.
a struggle of like, then obviously
it's a negative character arc, and this is quite interesting.
Well, that's what this one's good. The part 2 is good for that, because it shows you him on that downward arc. Yeah, really, he's coming like more and more of a dangerous man. Really, like a true criminal underlord.
Yeah, in the second one, he starts to lose everything. Really, by the end of it, he's losing deals, and he's losing his family. Like he loses a lot from becoming, but in that way, he becomes his father.
He does.
Yeah, he becomes his father, which is such an interesting. They both come very well together. If anyone doesn't realise, the reason the second one was in the 100 list and not the first one is because Godfather Part 2 was the first ever sequel film to do so well, and not only so well that it won Oscars, and because usually at that point in time, whenever a sequel film was in the works, it would always get given a smaller budget, so relatively it never really made a lot, very good. But this one, obviously, winning awards, and ever since then, now in cinema, it's this big thing of
having a well done sequel. You warranted in it, really. It does warrant. This sequel is well done. It's really well done. They put a lot of effort in, and you can tell they put a lot of effort in. They didn't want to just leave the story hanging. They felt like they had a lot more to tell.
Yeah.
And they put the effort in to make it worthy, of the first one, and I feel like it is. I enjoy the second one more than I do enjoy the first one. So what were you like? What was your first take on the second one? Did you like the story? Did you like the way they went in the direction from the first, like the transition? Do you like?
Yeah, I felt it was the sequel. Part 2 really felt like just a continuation of the main story, and I think that's what is so important when you make sequels. Is it, things like such as like when you look at like the Ice Age franchise and that they've got like 6 films out now, and they're awful because every single one is just this brand new adventure.
Yeah.
So it's like it's never been foreshadowed. It's never been foreseen. Like at least with for example the first 2 Shrek films, the reason that works so well is because you knew that he's going to end up having to meet the parents if he marries this girl. So there's always that kind of open ending where with Ice Age there never really was. I mean, animation aside, this film is probably, I would say, the best I've seen.
What, of a sequel?
Of a sequel and how successful it's become. Yeah, I would definitely say that this is like the best kind of sequel I've seen, and how it's kind of melded those two together. I still enjoyed the first one more. I'm not entirely sure why that is, but I think it's because that was the original and it started so much. There wasn't as many. There was only really in the second one like one quote, which is like something that I recognise straight away that clearly has had relevance in pop culture, which was "I'll make him an offer he can't refuse." Which was class, and also I would definitely say that Robert De Niro is the best part about.
Well,
the film.
that's what I personally like this one better because of that character. I like that story. Like, they didn't have to do that, but I thought that was the best part. The flashbacks to how it showed his Don Corleone.
Yeah.
Marlon Brando's character in the first one. It showed him being a boy, getting stripped, his family murdered by like a local mob boss of Sicily, where he was from. Well, Corleone. Corleone in Sicily. So, and seeing flee to America because his family's been decimated, basically. Then showing him growing up, and it really showed you like what the mafia and this whole Cosa Nostra is about. Like, it's all based on a favour. So when he grew up in the neighbourhood and he then went on to like assassinate that mob boss in Little Italy. Yeah. And then he became that boss, and he just like showed the beginnings of how he became such a man, and he even carried that on in the earlier film. It carries on to Marlon Brando's character when he in the first one, how everything he does, people go and see him and he does a favour, and it's all like, so he has so many people in his pocket, and it's how it works really. That is how the mafia works, and they're very well paid attention to the detail of it. They must have done a lot of research into it. And
I mean, you're a big mafia fan.
Yeah,
you're a big gangster fan. Mafia.
I love gangster films and mafia films.
Yeah. I mean, what is it about them that you like so much? Like,
I don't know. It kind of just. I mean, I'm saying if you were actually in the mafia, I feel like it would be a terrible life. You would probably never be truly settled. You'd have some perks, but it's probably not the life I could live because I couldn't live that kind of high stress life.
I felt that's what the second one shows you as well. Yeah.
But usually the glamour side is like a really good lifestyle, and like I like the whole idea of it. Like, you're just like this, you're your own lawless man. Basically, they're all just free men, really free men. To be honest, they do what they want when they want.
Attractive about
it's like truly free men. Yeah. When you watch them all, they're all just free men that just do what they want, but they still have a family, and it's cool how it's all like it is literally a family.
Yeah.
Like, even that's true to like real life mafia. It's literally when you get that like made guy, when you take that oath.
Yeah.
And become like it's like a trip. You step into a family that always looks out for you. I know they can still kill you in that. It's very.
I do find it quite interesting that we're currently watching The Sopranos.
Yeah, and that's exactly. That's a very good depiction of it.
Inspired by it, yeah.
And that's a very good depiction of it. They stay very true to it, and I feel that's why that does so well. I feel like the true way you stick to it, but then still put dramatised events into it.
Yeah,
you do better a mafia story, I would say.
I definitely think so. There was definitely a different way which they show the mafia with The Godfather than maybe any kind of noir film, from like the 40s and 50s. And I think that's probably, it's very much, down to the idea that it isn't just high octane like action and people getting killed left, right and centre. It's a lot about, there's a lot of kind of like dignity about it, and there's a lot of, it is very much about your real family. It's the quote in Sopranos, which is, if his family doesn't kill him, his other family will.
Yeah.
And it's just showing that there's like all these, because Tony Soprano, like every kind of antagonist he meets is actually like a family member. So, yeah, it's never like a new strange enemy.
Yeah.
But yeah, look, I really enjoyed them. And it was strange for me because I've had an opinion for quite some time that I believed that the director Francis Ford Coppola wasn't a good director. And the reason I initially thought that when I was a kid was because I knew of the films he had more recently done than suppose of this like golden era of Coppola films, and he'd done the 90s Bram Stoker's Dracula,
didn't he? Yeah.
I cannot fathom how much I detest that film, and a big part of it is because of the essay I had to write at university.
That is a shit film, though. Very shit film.
I'm glad you think so, because I was kind of doubting myself, thinking, well, is it because I did an essay on it? Or
nah, it is shit. It's brought shit.
Yeah, I thought so.
But
I mean, Gary Oldman does a very interesting performance, but Keanu Reeves does a terrible British accent. And that's definitely one of the big downfalls of it.
Well, we were looking for his films, and he had a massive slope after he had he had a good start to his career.
Yeah.
But then he's been on a slide ever since.
Well,
really,
he's just so unknown now. Like, even one of his more recent films scored less than 5 on IMDb.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
I don't know. Well, he had obviously the Godfathers.
Yeah.
Then he had Apocalypse Now, which we also watched.
We did watch Apocalypse Now, and believe it or not, I know you don't agree with me, and it's probably quite an unpopular opinion, but because of these films and because of the question in my head thinking, well, is he a bad director? And the Godfather films, the first time I'd watched them, left such a good impression as I thought, well, I am now going to have to watch Apocalypse Now, because it wouldn't be fair to then assume 2 Godfather films with the Dracula film and the film Jack that he did with Robin Williams, which for the most part people love, but when you look at all the other films he's done, you think, well, there's a different kind of scale there. And so we had to watch Apocalypse Now, and I actually preferred that over the Godfather films.
I mean, it's a great film, I'm not going to lie, so it's really high up. I still prefer the Godfathers, but I hadn't seen it in ages before we watched it. They were late as well, and it refreshed it, and I was like, wow, a lot more happened than I thought. I forgot it was such a long film as well. It's on
I remember
for
seeing
3
a
hours.
bit of it when I was a kid, but I must have only watched half of it and fell asleep because it is such a long film. But it's just, that to me just felt like it had so much more for the brain.
I'll give you that. Give you that. When I watched it, my conclusion was that I could watch the Apocalypse Now. It's an easier watch, even though they're so long. Both films are like 3 hours, so they're both hard watches in their own right. If you've got to really be into it to watch a 3 hour film.
Yeah.
But you can so much happens in Apocalypse Now. It's like a story down this like winding river of like Viet Cong, and then like every checkpoint has a disaster, and they all try to lead to this like end of the road Cambodia, and it's like Marlon Brando's, he's like made a cult, and this Vietnam obviously veterans being hired to murder him because he had like committed murder on these like Cambodian citizens in this cult. So he get charged with killing them, and it's like a winding journey of like getting to each point, and some bad happens, and boom, 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 until he gets to the end. Obviously,
I think it's kind of
does what he has to do, and it's
there's so much about it because there's this descent into madness as you're going down the river on so many different levels, even with each individual character, but also the way it's felt, the way it's shot. Like the whole film is like this journey of descent into madness, but there's also this parallel of a journey of humanity growing as well. So at the beginning, when they see, when they're with their army and the army are invading a village, and it's brutal. It's really brutal. That's why I love it. It holds no punches.
They're literally just mowing down like civilians. It's really horrible. But then, like that was a good. When you said that, I agree.
Yeah, and then like, towards the end, there's more humanity for each other with the Colombian, with the tribe. And with, of course, Marlon Brando as well. Like, although he's technically lost his mind because he's so far deep in this jungle, there is an element to him that is more human than anyone else in that film.
Yeah, that's it. And he becomes to feel that. It takes him a while to actually do the murder. He starts like basically living the life for a bit.
It is.
He's like very torn with it.
Well, it's about his descent into madness.
Obviously.
An element of madness in which he then becomes Marlon Brando's, heir to the throne. Almost. And it's so bizarre. It's such a bizarre film. It was incredible. It was an absolute masterpiece. I can see why Apocalypse Now, like out of all of them, Apocalypse Now was my favourite film. And for one of the biggest reasons was just the amount of struggle that went on in that film was ridiculous. And obviously we were talking about it and saying that there was actually a documentary made called The Heart of Darkness, which was filmed by Francis Ford Coppola's wife during the entire time. And this film had so many bad things happen to it. I mean, firstly, it had a typhoon that wrecked a set completely. They had to then come back to America and then try to regroup and figure out what was going on. They lost so much money. The film ended up being nicknamed Apocalypse When, because it was only going to be 6 months and it lasted over a year into filming. And that's people in the jungle for a year. They were filming in Malaysia, around that area, and they ended up hiring loads of tanks and helicopters and stuff. And halfway through filming, these helicopters had to stop and go and fight rebels. Just all the time. Martin Sheen had a heart attack, and they were too afraid to tell the producers because then they knew that the company would shut it down. So they were treating him in this jungle, refusing to let anyone know. And it's mental, absolutely mental. And the documentary, apparently going through it just shows you that although the film is about descent into madness, the film is into madness, and Francis Ford Coppola descends into madness as well. And it's just ridiculous.
Mate, that's probably helped his cause, to be fair. Because he was probably just depicting what he was feeling in his head. Yeah.
It must have been really good for actors to work on it.
Aye, because you'd just be look into my eyes. This is what you need to be.
I think before moving on to a big question that I have, I think one of the biggest things to appreciate with that as well is that if you're writing a story, if you're writing a script or a character or an antagonist and you want to build up, that film does it so well. Marlon Brando's build up, because it's mentioned at the beginning of the film, that is the task. And the further they descend in, every now and then you hear a little bit about this person and you just realise this person must be nuts. And the way it's actually shot, with the shadows, and how he finally reveals himself through a full scene of dialogue before he actually reveals himself.
Aye, that bit with the shadows and he's washing his head and and his face just comes up at the end.
Yeah.
Apparently he was a nightmare on the set as well.
Yeah, he turned up drunk, didn't know his lines. But he was fat as well, and this was a big thing because of course you can't really get away with being fat if you're living in the jungle like that. I mean, it was definitely one of his best roles I've seen.
He played it well.
These films have cemented to me that Marlon Brando is one of my favourite actors of all time.
That's how it's just natural talent. If he turned up like a booze head, right?
Yeah.
And still nails that performance, I'm like, how can you do that?
Exactly, he nailed it, and it's enough to make you think, well, actually, I don't like this actor, but the fact that he still nailed it is just incredible. But again, I was thinking at the beginning of this, and for a very long time, is that I don't like Francis Ford Coppola as a director. I thought my general naive assumption at the time was that his credits really lay with the other creatives around him. And most importantly, because The Godfather the original first Godfather isn't written by Francis Ford Coppola.
Yeah.
It's actually written by Mario Puzo, who is a guy that has wrote a lot of content about gangsters in New York because he grew up in that, in that kind of neighborhood.
Yeah, he was actually very close to that one. He was basically living it.
Yeah, I mean, anyone that ever does a mafia film, apparently that's the main reference. They go to his catalogue of works. And The Godfather is a book that he wrote, so the blueprints were already there. And so I was always this idea that Francis Ford Coppola wasn't a great director and that he was really leaning on the story. But when I was actually watching a lot of his directorial choices and the way it's cut and some of the way it's shot as well, he loves big wide sweeping shots.
Yeah.
While loads of things are going on, but you're following a character, and I really like those shots. I'd love to.
Well, I thought when we were watching Apocalypse Now, it was quite noir, LA noir. I was there's bits where he was reading the case file on Marlon Brando before he was going to kill him before he was at the point.
Yeah.
And he was reading it throughout this journey, and it was flashing to the document, then really close up the Michael Sheen's face.
Yeah.
And it was kind of just doing. He was there was a monologue of him talking, but it was basically what he was thinking, but just because his lips weren't moving, it was just out loud.
Yeah,
and it was so weird. It felt I was it's kind of turned into a detective 90s detective LA black and white kind of thing. I was that's a bit, but it was good. It worked, and it was I was fair play.
Well, here's a little bit of a history lesson of Francis Ford Coppola, and I thought I have to understand where's he gone? What has happened to him? And
Well,
I no longer felt that he was a bad director, but I just wanted to understand why does he not make anything a note? And the weird thing is that when he got the Godfather film, he didn't really have any big credentials to it. The production company were actually only looking for an Italian American to direct it. That is the reason he landed that, and he had such a horrible time through the entire thing. So he wasn't the first choice to direct, and he didn't want to glorify the mafia as well. So he was kind of against the script at first. He wanted to make it a message about capitalism, and and about his heritage. And the filming was tough because every single moment he was always worried that he was going to get fired. He was always at odds with the production company. Like, it was, the relationship there really didn't work. And the fact is, when The Godfather came out, everyone thought it was going to flop. And then Stanley Kubrick came and said it was the best film he'd ever seen.
What do you think? The reason he had such a slide after like Apocalypse Now and The Godfather, do you feel he actually went a little bit mad, like fully mad, and just not been because he's had he literally did go into madness. Yeah. Doing
Apocalypse Now.
Aye, so it might have such an effect on him that he just didn't have the drive for it. He might just not have the hunger for it, making the films anymore.
I would like to think so, but then at the same time, why is he still making films? It's weird.
Just to make.
He's from that generation.
Living, I guess.
Yeah, it's regarded as the golden new Hollywood era. So it was these directors that changed Hollywood from being this kind of studio-based musicals to then really gritty and realistic stuff. So Martin Scorsese, George Lucas, Stanley Kubrick, and of course, Coppola here. So after he did The Godfather, he went and did a film called The Conversation, and then that blew up out of nowhere, and that's what cemented him as like a legend straight off. And when I was like kind of reading into it, what I found quite interesting was the reason it was so applauded was because the way it was shot was very much along the lines of like security CCTV.
Yeah.
And then at the same time, there was the Watergate scandal in America, so everyone kind of connected it to that, but he never initially wanted it to be about that. So he just kind of rode on the success of this president falling.
Well, do you not think he's just went, I've got a theory on why it happened. I think he's just became a victim of his own success, really.
Yeah.
In a way, because he's had such a terrible time making these films, as in The Godfathers, in the Apocalypse Now. He's probably just done that. Then, like you say, he made that. What was it? The Conversation.
The Conversation, yeah.
And it's probably catapulted in a way he's not thought, and he's just thought, right, I made it now. But then other films have took so much out of him. It's like when a boxer has too many fights and he just can't take it anymore. He's still trying to get in there to make his money and maybe whatever, but he's just getting killed, and it's just he's had to live up to a standard. People are expecting a standard from him, and he just doesn't have the energy and the drive or whatever.
Yeah.
Not to reach that standard. So his films have just slid, and he's just keep doing it for either a paycheck or just trying to still reach that or recuperate in a way. Yeah. He might have a resurge at one point. You never know, but I doubt it.
I think definitely one of the biggest problems was that he very much started taking on a director-writer role. And I feel that he's actually... So my general analysis of him is that he's a great director, but he's not a very good writer-director. And he has wrote and direct a lot of stuff before The Godfathers that got him to that point.
That's probably a good idea.
And also, with the second film, there was never meant to be a second. It isn't a part of the story. So he then joined forces with the original writer of The Godfather, who wrote the books, and they co-wrote something together. But he never co-wrote Apocalypse Now, and every film he does now is kind of co-written and directed. I mean, what's really sad is that he took such a slide and tumble after his golden era that the only reason The Godfather Part 3 was made is because he literally had to pay bills. The studio had said, let's do another one, the moment the second one came out, and he just refused because that was how he wanted, the story was meant to end, and he's added on the third one simply because he needed money.
Mate, and... That's why when we were watching it, I said, don't even bother with the third one.
Yeah.
It's such poor compared to it. There is some people who like it, but I don't at all.
I mean, for me, really, it's not even the idea if it's any better or worse. It's the fact that it wasn't made with the same passion.
Nah, that's what I mean. Yeah. So that's why I'm thinking, when I was saying he's probably just trying to cash checks because he just doesn't have the drive or the same passion for it anymore. He's just probably lost it over having a very difficult start to his career.
Yeah, absolutely. And it now I go back to that question, is Coppola a bad director? He's a fantastic director, maybe not the best writer-director, but he's a fantastic director. And then my second question being, well, what happened to him? And if anything, I feel really, I break my heart in the idea of how much he's had to endure and struggle to make such masterpieces of film and where he's ended up now. I'm also incredibly grateful that he had a daughter, because Sophie Coppola is a fantastic director and has clearly learned quite a lot of
Hopefully she lives on for the name.
Yeah, of course. She's, probably my favourite female director. She's really, really good. But I guess, yeah, I mean, on that sad note, what would you rate The Godfather?
Ooh. I would rate The Godfather 7.5, like as in a whole. Probably the first one would be an 8. The second one would be an 8. The first one would be 7 to us. So I've put 7.5.
That's fair, because I was going to say 7, so I think 7.5 for that,
then,
definitely.
For Apocalypse Now, I'd probably say, for me, just because I like The Godfather more, 7.
Mine's a 9 for Apocalypse Now. That's how much of an impression it left on us.
That's fair play. Like,
I loved it. That to me was, there was just so much more going on in that. And yeah, I think, if anything, what we've always said about doing these podcasts is that we're trying to challenge our own opinions and beliefs. And I've challenged mine, and I've actually said, you know what? Francis Ford Coppola is a great director. He's very good. But I guess now that we're moving very close to the end of this series, this is going to be our 13th episode.
Yes.
Yeah, 13th episode. We're on 13 episodes.
We've got 2 more because we're going to switch it up after 15, innit?
Yeah, exactly. So this might be the last time I ever get this will be the last time I ever get to pick films.
Oh yeah, because then
yeah. So
shit. What are you thinking?
So I've had to really think about what films I really want to be on, and I'm going to put it on the table again because I've always wanted to review it, and I will at some point, regardless if it does get picked. So I'm not trying to sway you. But 2001: A Space Odyssey, Mean Streets by Martin Scorsese, because again I've been really into Martin Scorsese at the minute. I've been looking at a lot. Talk about Francis Ford Coppola and that generation of filmmakers just made us realise how much I love Martin Scorsese. So Mean Streets I really want to watch because I haven't seen that before. And then finally, what's regarded as the greatest movie ever made, Citizen Kane. Everything on that list, they're the 3 films that I'm desperate to see. And so as my final time to see these 3 films, I pass them over to you.
It's hard because there's films I want to watch more than the others, but then there's like films I would want to review more than the others, if you get what I mean.
Of course, yeah.
Because there's more you could talk about.
Mm-hmm. You're actually sweating.
I feel it. I'm going to have to go Mean Streets. Because I want to possibly maybe we could watch one more like Scorsese and
I would possibly, you know what, I would honestly love that. I love Scorsese.
And
it's one of my favourite.
Talk about him directors. And just I love him as well. I love him so much. I want to talk about him and he's great.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's like it's fitting to Francis Ford Coppola because he was in the golden era that came over as well, like you were saying, of the movie, but he's just fucking nailed it.
Yeah.
Everything he touches turns to fucking gold, basically. So
absolutely. But yeah, I'm looking forward. Let's watch Mean Streets. Let's watch as many Martin Scorsese films as we can before we get to the next podcast, because I kind of get enough of them. I think my favourite director of all time is Stanley Kubrick, but who I believe is the greatest living director at this moment in time would be Martin Scorsese, without a shadow of a doubt. And so with that, we're going to finish this here. This is Hi Lazzarato. I am the gentleman.
And I am Papa Smoke. And we'll see you later, buddy.
Yes! 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 Oh! 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 Oh, God. Oh.
I'll have what she's having.